Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change our lives. Look at the Six Chelek Aleph, Parshas Emor, finishing up learning from Chelek Aleph and Gimel. We did a few times. We're going to go to base and Daled, which is very exciting. Okay, so we're talking about sefirah Emor, and we're discussing what Geder, well, like, how does it work? You know, and this is sort of something very, very interesting. A lot of times we learn, it's like, you know, it's like the joke. There's a rabbi that they're trying to get a position in a new shul, trying to find a new rabbi. And they come to this rabbi and they said, you speak to him, and like, I'll go to this rabbi, listen, we want a rabbi with one hand. So I said, rabbi with one hand? Why do you want a rabbi with one hand? What's the problem with having two hands? What's so bad? Because every rabbi comes in and he goes like this. On one hand, this is you could do it this way, but on the other hand, you could do that way. And he's like, well, enough with all the hands. It's just tell me what to do. So do this for Emor. Everyone knows you count. If you miss a day, you missed. You say it again with the bracha, without a bracha. But if you at night, if you realize in the day, you say it, and then you can say the next time with the bracha, and that's how people know it. But there's a lot of background to this discussion and how that comes out. And it's very interesting. So we were discussing that a little bit. So the background is like this. On one hand, one opinion says, you know what? Every day is a separate mitzvah. The mitzvah to count, there's 49, so to speak, mitzvahs in sefirah Emor. And so every day you have to count one of those days. That's one opinion. And the other opinion is that no, sefirah Emor really is 49. It's one mitzvah of 49 days. And ultimately we take both of them because we don't count on one hand, every day we do say a bracha. The other hand, if we miss, we don't say a bracha. If we miss a day, then we don't say the bracha anymore. So not like the first opinion, which would say every day you say this thing. But the second opinion, which is really one day, we don't go like that because really, if sefirah Emor was one mitzvah, meaning totally, so why would you make a bracha every day? You can make a bracha, technically you can make a bracha either in the beginning, but really practically you make the bracha in the end, just in case you missed. And that one bracha would get all of them. So what we do is sort of take both of those opinions and put them together. So every day we count, say a bracha, but if we miss, you still keep on counting, but you just don't say the bracha. Now, one of the reasons why we do this is because what happens if you miss, meaning also what's the mitzvah of counting? The mitzvah of counting every day has a separate mitzvah, irrelevant to what happened before. Practically speaking, we say that no, it's not that way. That meaning if you miss day one, then when you count, you say today's day two. It's not day two, but you didn't say day one. So seemingly you should say today's day one. And like we talked about yesterday, that like one of the practical ways that this is expressed itself, you see, because sefirah Emor is that we count 49 days, that every person themselves counts it. And that's why if someone goes to Australia from America, which you miss a day, if you fly from California, it matters where you go. But if you fly over the date line, which means from California to Australia, what happens? You miss a day. You leave on Wednesday. I did this a few years ago. You leave on Wednesday and you come to Australia on Friday. So if you're doing during the sefirah, then everyone that night, on Friday night, are going to be counting one day. Let's say day 3, and you're going to be counting day 4, day 2. So we're day behind, which means when Shavuos is being celebrated in Australia, for all the Australians that have been counting every day from Pesach, you'll be a day later. So this is a very interesting discussion going on here. Now we're going to discuss another part of this is what about a person, the marshal, I have a son, Levi Yitzchak. He becomes bar mitzvah during sefirah Emor. His birthday is at Chaf Daled Nisan, which is he's Gevurah Shebegevurah. It's already a full week into the sefirah Emor. Now, the question is, when he starts counting sefirah Emor, he's not bar mitzvah. He's not obligated in mitzvahs. He makes a bracha, puts chinuch. But what happens What happens when suddenly becomes bar mitzvah and he's obligated in mitzvahs? So how does he make the bracha? Because now the obligation that he has is a very different obligation, and therefore, and can we say on one hand, can we say the brachas that he said before help, or do we say no? You can't compare, you can't put them together because that's an union of chinuch. It's not real it's not real in the sense of the obligation, and now he has the obligation, so he's missed. And so what would he do? And does he not be able to fulfill it? Mitzvah Hashem, we'll get to that today. So let's continue. Let's see. So we can say, the truth of the matter is, really, there's 49 separate mitzvahs, like that first opinion. A specific mitzvah every evening. So, and that's why it's special about the month of Iyar, is that every day it has a special mitzvah. Nisan, you have some of it. Sivan, you have some of it, because you still can't experience it for a few days. But Iyar, every day has a specific mitzvah. Mitzvah here, lisper be'er rishon es hasfir rishona. But, and this is the important point, that the first day's mitzvah is to count the first day. Be'er hasheni es hasfir hashniya. And on the second day, you have a mitzvah to count the second day. Uba shlishi, and on the third day, of course, it's a shlishis, to count day 3. V'chein Allah. And therefore, we miss a day. For example, Adam shechasses ha'erev. Hasheni eni yachalei malachim mikein hayom shloshi yamim arba yam chulu. So if you miss day 2, you can't count on day 3 and say today's day 3, because it isn't day 3 for you, because you haven't counted day 2. Shekein loy titachen sefirah shlishis reviz blishni. You can't say days 3 and 4 without day 2. But what happens? It doesn't affect before, only affects after. The next coming days, not the preceding, not the previous days. Every day has a mitzvah. So if 30 days you count good, it's perfect. 30 days, those 30 days have fulfilled the mitzvah the way they're meant to be. But after that, and if you miss a day after day 31, you miss. So day 32, you can't say it's day 32, because really it's meant to be day 31 for you. But really it is day 32, and therefore you can't say the bracha anymore. So that's one idea. Secondly, kayemes chakira, there's a discussion. There's a discussion b'yeches l'sefirah in regards to counting the sefirah. Im etzem inyan sefirah hu mitzius yemes. Is sefirah Emor and mitzius? It's there's like an existence. There's something called sefirah Emor, and that's it's like the carbon Emor, and it's thing. And the Torah says that this mitzius, this existence, should be counted and done a mitzvah with. Mitzius zuti mitzvah b'yechus l'Emor. Shemitah, Yevel, like you have Shemitah and Yevel, and how it affects everything. Or is sefirah Emor itself nothing but the mitzvah? It doesn't really have an existence. Why? But really, what it is, it's counting. The counting is not like a number. Is not a mitzius. It's not a physical thing. A number. So what is sefirah Emor like a is its own specific mitzias, or is just like a number which is no real mitzias? Mitzvah, and just because we made a mitzvah, that's what makes it chashuv, that it's a mitzvah. Not what makes it mitzias, meaning the mitzias of sefirah Emor is a mitzias of a mitzvah, or is it something that also has a mitzvah with it? So what does it make a difference? This is what we're going to talk. Practically, what is this? What's the discussion? What's the halacha? Halacha here. What happens about a servant? A person is a servant and becomes freed during sefirah Emor. And when this servant was still a servant, before they became free, they're already counting sefirah Emor. Question is, can now, when they're free, make a bracha, they have a different status now. So now, plugging that discussion, let's see what it is. Im etzem inyan sefirah hu mitzias latzma. If sefirah is a mitzias to itself, being that it is a mitzias, and beforehand we counted, the person was counting, the slave. So yachal hu lisper la'acham mikem bracha. Continue counting a bracha. It has its mitzias, and so this mitzias I was counting. But if it's only from the mitzvah aspect of it, that sefirah Emor is only a mitzvah, it's not actual mitzios. So therefore, mitzvah being that when the person was a servant, they didn't have the mitzvah. There was no mitzvah for them. So it was, and there's no mitzios in that sense. So it's as if they didn't count, because they didn't have a mitzvah then. So only now they have the mitzvah, they count. So 10 days in to sefirah Emor, they become free. Even though they were counting before, but their counting before wasn't a mitzvah, it didn't mean anything. And being that the mitzvahs of sefirah Emor is just, according to this opinion, is just the mitzvah, and they didn't have the mitzvah, so they didn't really have any mitzvahs. But if you're going to say the sefirah Emor is the mitzvah, so therefore they had there was a mitzvah, so they were counting that mitzvah before, and now continue counting, and that's fine. Yeah, and therefore they can't start making a bracha now. But lagabe gesh this guy in regards to a ger, let's say a person becomes converts in the middle of sefirah Emor. So what happens there? So this question doesn't really exist. Why? It's like a new mitzias, become like something new that was never there. So in that case, it doesn't really matter. It's like you become transformed. Now, what about Shaila Zudan Gam Minchas Chinuch? Minchas Chinuch also has this discussion. He brings down mitzvahs, and in his discussion, he also brings down. What does he say? The mitzius sefirah doesn't really discuss the mitzius, the existence of the counting. Like we said before, that really the 49 days are really all one big mitzvah. But according to that, the question is not just about a servant that was freed, but the case, like we said before, about Levi Yitzchak becoming bar mitzvah during sefirah Emor. So what's the status? Being that the Minchas Chinuch is talking about that really sefirah Emor is really one mitzvah. So therefore, yesh makom lishel gam bekatan shegado. When you become bar mitzvah during sefirah Emor, or you become bas mitzvah, amnam gam bekatan yesh mitzvah b'davar. Even though they have a mitzvah beforehand, meaning when they're still 12 or for a girl still 11, it's still not a mitzvah. But because mishum chinuch, so you have mitzvah of chinuch. But aval mi'acha she'eino el midrabanan, the mitzvah of chinuch is only midrabanan. Yitachin shemitzvah midrabanan eino yachal lahashlim mitzvah d'oraisa. You can't go from midrabanan to d'oraisa. So what happens over here? Ach lefi ma shehuzber said, what is it? What happens if a person becomes bar bas mitzvah during sefirah Emor? Do they count now? Continue counting with a bracha, which is funny. And normally the issue is we forget or something, and therefore we can't say the bracha. But what happens if you didn't forget? You said, let's say a person becomes bar bas mitzvah on the day 49. So they count 48 days perfectly, and day 49 comes, and suddenly they're bar bas mitzvah. Can the other days count towards it, or is there a new situation and then it's not considered? And that last day they won't better count with a mitzvah. We can make count with a bracha. We'll finish it off quickly here. Being that we explained, really every day has its own mitzvah. Like we said before, you can't have 3 days without 2 days. The Yamim HaKodim, this you have to rely on the previous days. It's not because of the mitzvah in those days that their mitzvahs affect this mitzvah. It's the mitzvahs. you can't count 4 if you didn't count 3. The question doesn't really, he's saying the question doesn't really apply to the child. It really only applies to the Eved, the servant. Mishum sheloi haisa b'sfirasei hakadem is called mitzvah vein kayemes. For mitzvah because he didn't have this mitzvahs. Mishum shegam mitzvah darabanan oised david mitzvahs chashirim. The answer is that it's fine because even though it was darabanan, but we did the mitzvahs of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is a mitzvahs, and that mitzvahs is, and they counted the mitzvahs. Like we said, that evish nishtachar, like a servant that was freed, even though it is a mitzvahs, we're saying, and this is if it's a little hard to follow all the things, but basically what we're saying is before we're saying, being that it's a mitzvahs, the question was, is the counting a mitzvahs? It's something like you're counting something physical, or is it just numbers, which is not physical, and so it doesn't matter. So we're saying it is physical by a kid that by bas mitzvah during sefirah Emor, they can continue counting with the bracha because they were counting the mitzvahs, and that worked. Aval yeah. Ve'en kol sheila mishum shigam mitzvah darabanan oised david mitzvahs chashivi, and that mitzvahs makes it chashuv, makes it something, and therefore it's fine. And tomorrow we'll finish it up probably with the maskana, and we'll figure out what we can learn from this. Have a great day.